Hello, everybody. She Who Remembers welcomes the sacred medicine woman, Nyasha. She is an embodied channel and a teacher of God. My intention for this conversation is for it to be a living, breathing oracle and to open the portal of remembering for everybody tuning in. So, Nyasha, thank you so much for being here.
Blessings. Thank you so much for having me, and so much love and blessings to everyone tuning in.
Yes, absolutely. Can you please tell us a little bit about your lineage and the medicine that you work with?
So I am in this lifetime. My father is Ethiopian, and my mother is from India. So I've got some very strong ancestral spiritual lineages running through my DNA. But my path actually this life has been, you know, a real collage of different practices and lineages and teachings. I'm just following the call in each moment and stage of my journey. And recently, for example, I've started to be in a deep study with the Orisha, the Afro-Brazilian development of the original West African spiritual tradition, which is the Yoruba tradition. So yeah, it's been a wonderful deepening. But I hold also with me Christ's teachings. I had a second awakening when I really started to study with Yeshua as my inner teacher. So I have a lot of Christ consciousness within my being and consciousness. And yeah, I also had a time where I was really journeying with bhakti and the yoga of devotion. And, I was loving kirtan and mantra. And earlier on my path, I was doing vipassana and studying with the Buddhist teachings. I did a really big time with Course in Miracles and the I Am teachings, Saint Germain. I had some work there. So, I'm really like a woman of God ultimately. And I was raised an atheist. And so I really forged my relationship with God through my own heart. So it's very sovereign and unique to me. No one told me go this way or that way, or this is how you pray or connect. And so, yeah, I just follow my heart and follow my calling, and the Holy Spirit is my ultimate guide through all my different deepenings and different pathways and lineages. I'm just praying to the Holy Spirit the whole time, and she always guides me perfectly. And so here I am.
You are beautiful. Just a radiant light, and I can feel like the Holy Spirit through you, which is wonderful.
Oh, God bless you, my love.
Thank you. Was there a specific experience that kind of opened you up from you being atheist to like, okay, I'm going to let God, Holy Spirit, really guide me?
Well, I had my first awakening when I was 24. But before that, I've always been a seeker in a sense, because I was always very psychic and I would sometimes just spontaneously channel, but I didn't know I was doing that. I just knew that it was coming through me, not from me. I knew that everyone's face would light up in a certain way when it was happening. And I understood because I would feel that energy too. And I know that exact same moment because it happens all the time when I'm channeling now. But when I was younger, I just didn't know what was happening or why. I just knew that it happened and it had this reaction, and what was said was coming from somewhere other than me. And yeah, it was just very energetically, open and sensitive. So there was always this building of consciousness that was just subtly happening through my system throughout my whole life. And there came a point at which I was like, okay, I'm ready to know what it is that I'm looking for, after finding pieces and little things coming together. But there wasn't that kind of critical mass point until I was 24. And I'd kind of got all the things I thought I wanted in my life. And then I was like, no, still feel that emptiness, which only God can fill. And then I remember journaling, like, I'm willing to let everything go so that I can find what it is that I'm looking for. But I didn't know what I was looking for. And then shortly after that, I had my spiritual awakening, which felt like a kind of shift from one day to the next. I had like huge downloads of light and consciousness, understanding, awareness, past life remembrance, just hit me. It hit me one day to the next. My life was never the same after that moment. It was like God coming in and being like, this is truth. This is reality. You've woken up. It was like really like waking up, so that was amazing. And then, yeah, that continued, for many years. And then when I came to Mexico, I had my second awakening, which was, I was experiencing the same kind of synchronicities and momentum after a hard time. And I was like, what's about to happen in my life? Something's about to happen. And I was like, this feels like what it felt like when I had my awakening the first time, you know? But it wasn't in my consciousness that like I was gonna have another awakening. And then that was when I really um came into awakening to non-dual um Christ consciousness, essentially. Which was such a blessing and took me a while because it's like you kind of go from feeling like you kind of understand everything to being like, okay, I'm like right a beginner again, and my ego really needs to fall away a lot more in order for me to anchor into these higher level teachings. So yeah, that's been the path so
Well,
far. It continues to unfold.
yes, absolutely. And it is that blind trust in knowing that you are divinely guided and that you don't necessarily have control over everything. And it's like you need to let go and surrender to have that remembering, to have that awakening and allow the magic to come through.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Listening, following the guidance, taking inspired action, and then just letting go. And, the trust in the path is one of the muscles that I've really built. And that's what really helps me because it means that no matter what is happening, like I know that everything is happening as it's meant to. And I know that it shouldn't be different. And I know that it's all for my learning and awakening. And I know that God is with me in all of it. And wherever my path goes, it's perfect. And also, really understanding that my path is, we're on one path ultimately, but in the experience of being individuals, we experience like individuated paths that appear to be different, but the core thread is the same. But the story and the way that it meanders, looks different for each of us. And so really allowing myself to be on my path and embrace my path and what I'm called to, even if it's different to others, even if, sometimes my ego's like, oh, well, that looks like a better path, or maybe I should be doing that. But then I'm like, well, I just have to trust my heart and my own calling. And if I'm, you know, guided in that direction instead of this direction, and other people are like, oh no, I'm definitely not going in that direction, then so be it. We're all doing the same work ultimately for the same purpose and to end up in the same, place of awareness in the end.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there are different, practices and religions and beliefs that try to create separation when really like separation is the illusion. It's like we are all weaving this same path and like everything is one, like we are everything. So it's like, what to you does that look like when you work with different people and hear other people's stories and like you do have, God as your guide? What are some of these kind of things that you share to help people understand this?
Well, we start with knowing what we are, which is not this ego identity. So we're not this name and this body that we identify with. This is a temporary experience that the soul is having. The soul is eternal, the soul is one. So we are
Mm,
the self that it never dies, was never born and never dies. We are one eternal light, experiencing a dream of separateness in order to awaken to our nature once again and hopefully never forget it again. So ultimately within that, we have a framework of understanding that all suffering comes from the ego, comes from the belief in the separate self, the belief that we're separated from God, the belief that we're separated from love, the belief that there is an us and a them. That's all of our suffering is rooted in the I self, the personality I, the construct of the separate self. And our freedom, our liberation, our healing, our peace, and our release from that suffering comes in disidentifying with the ego and instead identifying with the self, which is the same in all of us. It's the one self, and realizing that our true nature, our eternal nature, is peace, love, wholeness, strength, unity, connection, harmony, all the good things, all the things that we want to feel, we have access to, but we have to know where to look. So really, I see my path and my role. I'm like, I just show people. I'm like, this way, over here to find the light that you're looking for. And, I give people tools to help them to let go of the weight that holds them back from answering that call, which we all feel, to realize self, God, and love and surrender into the call to the light, which is the pull that we all have it, every single being in creation, not just on earth. We're all called back into that light of remembering wholeness, remembering oneness, remembering what we are. And so, yeah, I just help people to recognize that the call is there,
mhm.
to know how to, position themselves in a way that expands their perception and awareness of the light that calls them, you know? So it's recognizing opportunities for awakening to that light in day-to-day life, in our relationships, recognizing what it feels like when we're resting in a state of inner coherence and wholeness, and also the contrast of that. When we're not feeling like ourselves, when we're not feeling open hearted and loving and generous and trusting and faithful, and knowing that we have power. We always have power to make the shift and to break into a higher state of consciousness. We're either blocking the miracle, which is, awakening into self realization in any moment, or we are saying yes to the miracle. So we have the power. We have so much power in us, the power that God made in us, because God created us in, the image of God, and with the power to create and the power to choose. And so we can choose our direction. We can choose how we orient ourselves relative to all that is. And the world can be so distracting. There's so many distractions. The ego is always distracted with its idea of itself and how to inflate the idea of itself or the perception of the ego in the eyes of other egos, and just goes on, winding around like that. And so we have to be the one that interrupts that, egoic thought form stream maze with awareness of God and with thoughts of truth and thoughts of love, and use the power of our consciousness to send ourselves in the aligned direction, which is home to God, home to love, home to peace, home to truth, and to hold ourselves to extremely high standards vibration. And this is one of the things that has helped me so much in my path, and is one of the things that I really pass on to my students. We have
Mhm.
to hold high standards for ourselves because no one will hold them for us,
So true.
We have to be the one that, is radically honest about what's going on within ourselves. Because otherwise we can avoid our work and we can point at others endlessly and point at the world. But really it's always in us. How are we feeling? What are we thinking? What are we holding that we haven't let go of yet? Where are we not embracing our power to transmute, to transform? Where are we holding on to the energy and light and gifts that God gave us instead of breaking our vessels open so we can stream the love, truth of God and light of God out? Because we're all here as transmission devices, to beam, to beam and to beam. And that's our natural purpose. And that's when we feel our best, when we are in the transmission of our true nature. We spend a lot more time in the transmission of our ego and it doesn't feel as good. That's why anytime if you choose the path of service, sometimes you can be stuck in the ego, feeling really low, and then you suddenly are put in your position of service because you've chosen to be of service, which is a good thing. And then suddenly in the moment of service, all this light comes through and you feel uplifted again and you feel clear again and you feel reminded of who you are. Because that's when you know yourself. Because to serve, you have to recognize that you have light and love to give. And you have to recognize that even though you're still working on yourself, you can still shine. You
Yeah.
can still be a force of healing. Ego has this illusion of, oh, you need to be, completely healed, completely awoken in order to be of service. And if I had believed that to be true, I would never have started on my path because I've been healing at every stage of my journey. And I'm so proud of the version of me that started, because I had so much more density then. And still I chose to serve, and I was able to, facilitate wonderful experiences for people of healing and transformation. And obviously now I can guide people somewhere else because I've taken myself somewhere else. But I'm so proud of every stage of that journey and the willingness to serve and shine. And I'm like, bless my younger self, because I had so much more density. So it was actually harder to say yes then, because I had to say yes through all of the egoic resistance that's like, oh no, doubt, fear, that, whatever it is, Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you just for starting, even when you don't know the path forward and you feel all of these things and you're not fully healed, quote unquote. And I think that's the most beautiful time, because it's like you will have people who are attracted to your work and who want to work with you at that level. And then you keep growing and evolving, and that evolves and changes with it. So it's
Exactly.
supposed to compound and compound that way.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? It's just funny because when I think back, it was just recently 10 years since my first awakening. It was my birthday last month.
Happy
And
birthday.
thank you. And then I think back to wow, if that version of me then would see who I am now, and the work I do and everything, she would be like, wow, she wouldn't even be able to conceive of it, you know, because it's like vibrationally I've come so far. But she would be so amazed and so encouraged and inspired to do what she was doing, knowing where we would end up. And because it's so easy to look forward. I now am aware of all the ways I still need to grow and all the ways that I still feel held back and all the things, the blocks that I still need to overcome. And we can easily forget. And it is good to be in the now. But also sometimes what empowers us in the now to do the work of the now is remembering all the work we did before and how, you know, that's all within us. You know, the wisdom of every descent, every journey into the underworld, every time we faced the shadow, every time we've been willing to go to dark places in ourselves, we always come out brighter and we come out more equipped and with better tools to go deeper and deeper. And the thing about the path is that the more light you acquire and reveal and cultivate, and the stronger your tools come, because we're sharpening ourselves. We're sharpening and sharpening. So we sharpen our tools. And then eventually it's like, okay, now you're ready for some bigger stuff. And so then deeper buried layers of density come to the surface. And the experience of that regresses us in that moment. It feels like we're kind of back in a more immature state, childlike state. And
Yeah.
then often what I hear people say is, oh, I feel like I didn't make any progress. I feel like I'm back at the beginning. Like, you know, what was all that work that I did? You know? But this comes from confusion. I was saying earlier today to someone, is that the reality is no matter how much light you've cultivated, when density rises, it feels like density. Density 10 years into your path feels same as density, you know, year one into your path. The only thing that's different is how we're going to respond to it and the tools that we have to move through it more efficiently, more compassionately, with more understanding of what's required of us in the process, an alchemical process. But the experience of it feels the same. It's illusion, it's ego, it's dense, it's heavy. It doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel good. And so we shouldn't expect that because we've come to a certain place on our path that the density doesn't become less dense. It's still dense. So it's still going to feel dense, even if you're deep into your path. And there should be zero, you know, judgment or resistance to heavy density arising at any point in your path, because the reality is it's arising when it's meant to, when you were able to face it. And you don't ever get called to face something, which means to transform it into truth and light, until you are ready. And the irony is we never feel ready until we cross the threshold. So when something comes up and it's new because we haven't been to that depth before, we're immediately like feel overwhelmed by it and like we can't possibly make it through. And then obviously in time we'll work through the process, we make it through. And then we realize that we could, and then we become stronger and lighter and more empowered. And then eventually the same thing happens again. And I think that there is like an unconscious part of us that's just hoping, okay, like maybe this dive into the underworld will be the last. Maybe I can be done for now. And look, there is a point where we can, you know, rest in peace eternally. But it
Right.
requires a lot of work. And enlightened masters and sages and ascended beings, like they didn't skip the work. They were devoted in the work. So the more we apply ourselves to the work, which means we don't rush it, we don't run from it, we don't pretend that it's not there anymore. The more we're honest and we do it and we face it and we humble ourselves enough to be where we are, the more we experience acceleration. And so I know that like on my path, for example, I'm really honest about when I still have ego layers rising, when I have stuff coming up. I don't pretend at all to not have layers still. And I realize that to some people who are in the spiritual ego, they might be like, oh, she's got so many ego layers, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, the more I embrace my work and I'm not ashamed of it and I don't hide it and deny it, the more I accelerate. And that's why I have actually such a high frequency of light. You know, being honest and being willing to be humble and do the work that you don't want to admit to, that you don't, you know, that you rather pretend you didn't have to do still or deny is still there. That's how you accelerate your path. And doing that and being that humility has helped me to just take leaps and strides on the spiritual path. And so that's why humility is one of my ultimate, you know, hacks for accelerating spiritually. I'm like, humble yourself. You don't know what you don't know. Do the work that you don't want to do. Be honest about where you are instead of performing where you want to be. And you will flourish and thrive from that energy, because that's the energy that like creates leaps in consciousness.
Yeah, and you're authentic and you're in integrity and you are human. It's like I'm not above other people just because I've had my awakenings and I've got to this level. I still am very much like you're seeing the other person where they're at, and people can relate, and then people feel safe, seen, heard, held, all of those things.
Absolutely.
And it's like, that's so important as somebody who is of service, spiritual leader, whatever you want to call it, teacher, is you have this responsibility to hold people and make them feel that. So it's beautiful that you are operating from humility, and we need more of that in this world, in this
You know,
space.
so much better. I wish like everyone who's like resisting true humility, who maybe is performing humility or is stuck in like the performance of ego and performing to be advanced and whatever. I wish that they could taste the beautiful humbling, that you get when you really choose. It's like, you're being carved out of so much falseness, and like the ego always like I've been there, I've seen it all in my spiritual ego too. The ego wants to put itself above others. It wants to think it's special and it's different. It loves it. It loves it. It loves it. And then being carved out of that and hollowed out of those ego layers, because the spiritual ego, every time you do ego work, the spiritual ego recreates itself. So we've got to do a lot of ego work to like see past that. And then you just get this raw heart. And you just feel so good because you're not having to perform or pretend or hold up some type of image, because instead you're just being real and you're letting go of the masks. And I know that when I would see people share that way, that would stand out like a bright light to me in the sea of the spiritual, life and social media and everything. I would be so drawn towards people who would break down those constructs and shine truth and be vulnerable. I don't really use that word so much because I actually believe that when we're authentic, it doesn't make us vulnerable. It actually opens us up to way more power. So it's actually a portal for strengthening us. So it doesn't expose us to harm. I think it actually heals us and relieves us of the belief that we are vulnerable by resting in truth. So anyway, when we do that, we get so much power and so much strength. And so I love to be able to lead that way. And it's become so natural to me that I don't even consider that that's something I'm doing. But then other people are like to me, oh, I love the way you always share so authentically. And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah. I forget that people consider me doing that, because I'm just like being real, but there's so much performance on social media. And the reality is, like, I still am doing, even though I share some online and I'm very open, I'm still in my internal cavern doing much deeper work. And that's also completely fine, because sometimes we have to, be within with ourselves, and not everything is to be shared in every moment necessarily. But I think that a lot of the time, even when people talk about privacy and kind of this separation of the personal and the kind of teacher and the outward, I think that the ego can be a lot more at play in that than people want to always admit, because ultimately, if we're in the work of transformation and being honest about where we actually are on our path is what helps people the most. Which I mean, I've never heard a person say, oh, when that person was really authentic, like, it didn't help me. Maybe someone in their ego who has an idea of wanting someone to be a perfect leader, but then they aren't devoted to truth. That's actually a mirror of where they believe they need to be perfect and perform, and that they're not ready to be a teacher yet. When people say, oh, if you're still doing your work, then you shouldn't be helping others. Well, they have that belief in themselves. And so they're blocking themselves from being at service in deeper ways because of this belief that they're not enough. And also there's that part when it comes to service of understanding that the ego is not the one serving. So we're breaking down ego layers in our personal work, but when we're in service, it's from the heart. And it's from the self, the soul. So that is not the part of us that is weighed down. Obviously, there can be distortions in our consciousness that can affect the frequency of light that we can channel, but we can always channel the light, in some way. Even people aren't on the path. That when they help, when they take an act of love to be helpful or in service, they're channeling light. Like, it's still the same thing.
Whether or not you realize it.
Love. They don't have to be a spiritual teacher holding healing spaces. Like, they can, like, it's still healing. If any act of love, in Course in Miracles, they say all expressions of love are maximal. And I love this concept so much, because it means, and it really helped me with understanding my parents and receiving their love. It means that in a moment where love is true, because love is in the now, right? So if in this moment I choose to do something which is inspired and it comes from my heart and it's an act of pure love, it means that act of pure love in that moment is full and complete and wholly loving, right? And it's given and it's into eternity, so it never leaves and it never stops. So for example, your parents, some moments they were giving you pure love, and in those moments they were truly loving you, and then other moments they were not. And so it can be confusing, because we're like, well, my parents, love me, but then they're also really harmful to me. And so for a while, I remember early on my path, I was like, well, I guess then they just don't really love me, because harm and abuse and these other things, that's not love. So Course in Miracles helped me so much, because I was like, oh no, the moments where they did love me, that was love. And I can receive that love now. Even after your parents die, that love is always available. The love that was given is always available. And we can actually discard the rest. Ultimately, we want to heal, transmute, and then let go of everything that wasn't love. And we want to take the love and keep receiving that and receiving it, so it multiplies and amplifies through our being. And this is
Wow.
it's such a beautiful thing. I love that. It changed the way I related to my childhood forever. And even my grandma, she couldn't show love in many ways because she didn't know how, but there were moments of pure love. And I will treasure those moments of love forever. And I can receive them again and again, even now, even when she's passed. And so this is true for all. So every relationship you've ever had, you can look back and you can correct your perception by discarding the things that were not loving, and heal if you need to, and then let go as much as you can through forgiveness, and then hold on to with gratitude and receive the love that was given. And so I had a really toxic relationship back right after my first awakening. But it was also one of the most kind of expansive, in moments I felt so much love too. And it was really confusing for me for a while, because I didn't have this consciousness to understand that. And now I know I can be so grateful for all the ways that he did love me, and all the ways that I did love him, and also honest about the ways that I wasn't able to love him and the ways that he wasn't able to love me. And so this just really allows us to receive all of the goodness of life, which is which is all the love we receive in life. That's the goodness of life, love. To receive all the love, and to let the other things fall away, because that stuff's not important. It doesn't help us. It only helps us in as much as it redirects us towards the love. So we want to filter out, discard the illusion, the ego, and forgive people, because they know not what they do, right? People only love as much as they're able to. And in those moments, that was the best that they could love. And as they do more work on themselves, maybe it's this lifetime, maybe the next, their capacity to love will strengthen. And the more you devote to your own path, you become a force of love. You might find that in familial relationships, etc., like the ones that we chose as a soul, that we're moving in a constellation with, you're often the one with the greatest love force, and you might be able to love in a way that your parents can't, or that your siblings can't. And so then you have that responsibility to be the one that brings the force of grace and compassion and forgiveness, because you know better what love is, and you have the opportunity to practice that love through compassion and grace, because others don't have the same tools within them yet. They haven't yet activated and remembered them. And one of my friends, who's also very deep in the path, she said something to me the other day. She was like, well, I realized that I'm the spiritual adult in my family. And so
Yeah.
I have to be the responsible one. I may have parents, I may have grandparents, whatever. People may be older than me, but I am the spiritual adult. So I need to hold that position and be the one that is mature and graceful, and be the elder spiritually. And it really just landed for me, because I'm like, yeah, that's me. Okay. And then I also realized where I need to step into that role more, because, instead of trying to expect my mom to be somewhere that she can't be, know where I am, see where she is, and through love, without force or judgment, let her, rise up as much as she's ready to in this life.
And that I'm so happy that you just shared that, because it's like meeting people where they're at and knowing in your mind, this is how this person is evolving, and they're on their path for their specific reason, whatever soul contract they chose, whatever the karma is. And you're not going to change that in them or help them see whatever they can't see. You can just be embodied in you and operate from love, and know that you're holding the space that you can in the ways that you can, meeting that person exactly as they are, for every familial relationship, romantic relationship, friendships. It's we
Yeah.
can meet each other in this moment, but I'm
Uh-huh.
not going to try to change your perspective or whatever. I'm holding my truth
Mm.
and my embodiment, my connection to source, and
Mm,
operating from that place.
because the ego will so often see where it it has its own perception. It's not even it's not true sight, right? Because true sight sees beyond the ego. So when we are fixated on where another ego is, we're actually in misperception ourselves. And from that misperception is when we start to try and change the ego and help that ego. And really what we're actually avoiding there is helping ourselves, and changing our own egoic misperception. And so instead we project it outwards and we think we're, helping and trying to like raise things into higher energy. But the work is within. The greatest work we can do is on our hearts, on our cultivation, and it's in silence. And it's watching the energy that is arising within our consciousness, which is then filtering into our words and actions. And it doesn't matter what we're saying, because sometimes, we can say, oh yeah, I'm saying the right things and I'm doing this. But if your energy is not there, if you're judging, if you're feeling resentful, if you are feeling superior, people feel it. Ego is smelly. We can smell, do you know what I mean? Like, even when people try and act like they're not in the ego, we know, we can feel. We feel the heart and we feel the ego. And that's one of the things that sometimes I'm like, oh, it's a hard one, that, because I can feel the heart because I've cultivated my heart a lot. So I can feel when there's like real heart resonance with people. And sometimes I'm like, I want to feel it because someone's like talking all spiritual and I have things in common with them. And I'm like, I'm trying to connect with them, like in the heart, with that real energy. And then like, I'm like, oh, it's just not there. And I'm like, well, maybe just not yet. And then maybe also like, I can just accept that. And I don't need to force or pretend that I feel resonance when I don't, because I know that when someone's really in that resonance, I feel it. And not everyone is ready yet to cultivate that in themselves, because it takes so much work. It takes so much work, lifetimes of work. It's not just this lifetime. I'm still working on it every single day. Every day I'm doing the work to refine, to purify, to clean my heart, to be a force of true love, to overcome judgment and spiritual ego and whatever else arises in me, and feelings about loneliness. Like, I have all sorts of layers. We all have so many layers. And the more honest we can be, the more we can do the work, the more we can then lead by example and actually help people. Because if we're avoiding the deeper layers of our own work because we're stuck in performance or spiritual ego, unfortunately, as much as we might be able to help people in some way, we can also unconsciously mislead them into the performance of embodiment and to the performance of progress.
Yes.
And so no one's getting anywhere fast, really, with that. Like, there might be some shifts and it might feel good in the moment, but like the deeper level of work requires so much honesty, so much self-reflection, so much humility. So, questioning, it requires self-inquiry and questioning. Where am I really? What's really going on? What's really happening inside me? What don't I want to admit to? What would I rather hide and deny and pretend is not here? What do I feel ashamed of? What doesn't fit in with the nice, pretty spiritual persona I want to present? Oh, and it's so funny when you have groups of spiritual people together, because everyone's like in varying stages of awakening and then performance of ego, but then humility and the heart, it beams, but not everyone can recognize it because it's a specific frequency, and unless you've done some work in yourself, you won't even recognize it. So I feel like sometimes I'm like a ninja, like I'm moving in silence and I'm holding to somebody and people like don't even see me and I'm like just blessing them and loving them. And then the ones that see me, they're like, wow, you're light. And I'm like, I'm sending love to everyone, If people don't ask me anything about who I am, like I don't need to say anything. I just listen to them and ask questions and send love. Earlier in my path, I was much more like, oh, I want to talk about these things. And now I am just so happy to just be and meet people where they're at and send them love, and and not everyone's ready, and I've just accepted that because it's not easy to be on an accelerated path, and everyone's coming eventually, but it's not everyone's ready in this life to really face themselves, so people will rest in varying stages of the work, and there's different experiences of different levels of light and awakening, and people will rest and they'll make progress in different ways at different times. And we all just need to make our highest contribution in this life. So if you're in a life where you are, on an accelerated path, and maybe you're carrying some of the pull towards the light for the collective in a way that is more tangible, then you might be called to be in deep cultivation and to be in the real work that, some people maybe are wanting to avoid or perform. And it's okay. We don't want to judge anyone for that performance. We want to bless them and love them and wish them the highest and pray for everyone's progress and do our own work. More than anything, we want to do our own work in silence, in stillness, on our own, with God, And that's one of the things that's really helped me on my path, is that I feel like I've been, you know, out in the wilderness on my own with God. So it's the path of self-initiation, and I've delivered myself into, you know, breakthroughs through my prayer, through my will, and just through my own internal reflection, and, you know, knowing what love feels like, knowing what ego feels like, and then knowing, eventually remembering, because sometimes we forget, how to deliver ourselves in the right direction instead of stay stuck in an ego loophole.
Totally. And there's two things that I want to share. And one is like trusting your own internal compass and what God is telling you versus running to that mentor, psychic person to get the answer. And it's like really just sitting within and listening to what wants to come through. I think that within my own self has been like a massive lesson. Yeah. Just in things that I've been going through with like a trusted spiritual mentor that was like too much an ego and performative. And I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, you jumped outside of yourself to really trust somebody. And then you realize, oh, wait, like the answers are always within. I was always just being guided. I didn't need to necessarily go outside of myself to seek teachings.
Right.
One. Yeah.
You know, the thing is with that one, right, is that ultimately there's nothing outside of you. So if you're called somewhere, it's because you have a lesson to learn there with that person. Sometimes the lesson comes in a beautiful way. Sometimes it comes in a kind of ugly way. Sometimes it comes in when, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But ultimately, you needed to be there with that woman. You taught her things. She taught you things. You both were learning, you know? That's, if that's the way you needed to learn about trusting yourself, then that was the way you needed to learn about trusting yourself. You know what I mean? So,
Love it.
like, it's all perfect, actually, and so we can give thanks to every person that comes in our path, especially the ones that give us those lessons that we're like, "Oh, if only I had known, I could have skipped that one out." It's like, no, we couldn't have. We needed that lesson. We needed that,
Those
you know.
didn't have to be so hard, but okay.
Yeah, and also, so everyone's a reflection of us. So there's no one else. So when the spirit will guide us to someone, it's because that's an aspect of ourself waking up to itself, you know? So we're not, like, as long as our energy and consciousness is aware that we have brought that reflection in to our consciousness, then we're not seeking outside, you know? It's actually our self-trust that is delivering us into more confirmation of why we trust ourselves. Do you see what I'm saying? Because if you're
Yeah.
guided to work with a teacher and that experience expands you exponentially, you trusted yourself enough to know you were meant to walk there and work there and to receive, you know, and to know what's for you and what's helpful. So it's all actually a building in self-trust. And on the path, like, I've had a lot of times in the dark, in the wilderness, just with God. But there are times when I'm called to work with people, you know, not loads of times, but there are times, you know, there've been times, and they've been very important times for me. And you know, all of my teachers that I've had in various forms, I'm so grateful for them. And they come in different moments, in different ways, and for different durations, you know, they all teach me something. And actually, your teachers are not just the teachers. Everyone is our teacher. You know, our family are some of our greatest teachers. My kids, oh my God, they have taught me so much. They have taught me so much. So yeah, you know, it's all just self coming to know itself. And what I love to say is that the Holy Spirit knows exactly what we need to learn each lesson, exactly who we need to trigger these different layers of ego density in us. And it will find us, of all the people, it will find us the perfect people to come in to bring up the things that need to come up. And so we should not doubt even for a second the perfection of that. You know,
Wow.
we can think, oh, I wish, you know, if only I had that lesson, I couldn't have. No, because you needed it. We needed that lesson, and we needed that person to learn it with. And that is that, you know, and that's it. So the best thing we can do is accept and be graceful and be grateful and study hard and get the lessons. The more we study, the more we learn, the more we accelerate. And then we do graduate into higher lessons, which feel more graceful and easeful, where it feels more like learning through love rather than learning through the absence of love. Because often we're learning through the absence of love. And also often we're learning through both. I had like a recent relational experience that was absolutely both. Like, I felt a lot of love in moments, you know, like I'm describing moments of true and pure love. And then there was a lot of distortion and density. And it was all my teacher, and it all helped me.
That's so incredible to hear because I think a lot of times people hold on to the density and like what was wrong and how they felt betrayed or hurt, or even like, I think as a collective, when we see things in, I'm using like Epstein files, for example, and you see evil and hate in the world, and you're like, well, I want to do something, like I want to fight for justice. I want to fight for what's good, and I think people get stuck in that. But that again is like density. That's ego. I think people feel like helpless in a way where they want truth, they want light, but it's almost kind of like this paradox or opposing thing where it's like you just operating in a place of love is what's going to create more love. But it's, I think, sometimes hard for the ego to digest that when you see bad things happening.
Yeah. Well, that's part of how the ego operates. The more we focus on it, the more we get like kind of weighed down and blinded by it. So in Course in Miracles, they say you want to look at the error long enough to recognize it, ego being the error, that you want to look at it long enough to recognize it for what it is, and then you want to course correct. You don't want to dwell in the error, because they say that if you stay there too long, then you make the error real. So you give false power and false reality to what has no power and truth. Only love has power. Illusion is an illusion of power. It's the performance of power. It's a mask, a mirage of an inversion of the true power of life as God gave it to us. So yeah, we want to look to see, and then we want to redirect. Okay, where does force come from? Where does strength come from? Where does power come from? It comes from unity. It comes from divine connection. It comes from not judging those that are in the sleep, that are showing us how deep the sleep is. It comes from sending forgiveness and grace to all beings and being a force of love in the world, and that obviously begins in our personal relationships first and foremost, because that's the place where we are, really working through the most karma. Our family constellation, that's where we've really got this, and our relationships, the strongest karmic lessons, because this collective stuff is kind of more abstract. We're all in relationship to it and we're all in it, but the real kind of battleground for each of us, our own personal war with illusion versus truth, is in our personal relationships. And so we want to really watch, how much am I allowing myself to get caught in ego consciousness, where I'm playing out this separation and lack and, you know, whatever expectations or extraction, even where am I not in right relationship with the people around me? Where am I perpetuating the things that I say I don't like in the world? And it's obviously not easy thing to ask yourself. So again, with so much grace and compassion, we have to do this work. And it's the only way we can do the work, in fact, because if we are judging ourselves and shaming ourselves for our ego layers and all the ways that we're out of alignment with who we want to be and who we know ourselves to be in truth, then we won't look. We would just rather not look. That's what creates avoidance and performance, because we don't have enough capacity to hold the awareness of that which is yet to be transformed. And we also give false power to it, and we think it's fixed, and we think it's what we are. We identify too much with that
Yeah.
shadow, darkness, without understanding that it's just energy that's it's just in its wrong place. It just needs to be moved into the light so that it can start to shine, become an elevating force instead of a draining, weighing force that pulls us down into the sleep. So all of it has raw potential, raw energy that's waiting to be liberated into a higher state. And through our consciousness, we can bring the light where it hasn't, let light shine, and then the darkness just falls away and it becomes power, and it becomes wisdom, and it becomes strength. And suddenly it's fueling us instead of weighing on us. And that's why we should do the work, because we avoid the work because we think it's uncomfortable. We don't, but like, we'll be so much happier on the other side of it with more light, more power, more strength.
It takes so much more energy to be sad and negative than it does to be positive and happy and in love. Like,
Yeah,
so much more energy to be like, I'm upset. you know,
it's true.
it's exhausting. Yeah.
hmm and the more sensitive you get and the more you cultivate your light, you feel even more like, like if my heart closes, I literally feel pain in my chest. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, what is this feeling? Like, oh, I need to clean this off. It's like my heart naturally wants to breathe love and just sing love and shine love wherever I am. And so if ever I see someone who I have something unresolved with, and I don't feel that love just extending in my heart, I'm like, okay, let me go pray for this person. Let me
Oh,
pray on this block. Let me work on this. Like, even if I don't want to be actively like in relationship with them anymore, I when I'm praying, like, I'll go through lists of anyone who I've, had a big lesson with, where I don't feel my heart in full radiance, and I'm like, let me love them, you know? And that doesn't mean I'm going to go and speak with them necessarily, but I want to transform anything in me that's holding a residue that isn't love, you know?
yes, I love, and I was gonna ask like some tools and things that you recommend for people who do have this stagnant energy or holding on to something that doesn't feel resonant in their body. And it's like, I know there are so many different modalities that you can do, like journaling or energy healing or just a walk in nature, meditation. What are some of the tools that you give people to like release this stagnant energy or like the closing of the heart space?
There's so many things. You've listed some of them. I mean, service is always a great way to open the heart. Because service, obviously, when done from a pure place, not from performance or whatever.
Yes.
Um,
Very important.
but when we do it sincerely, it's very heart opening, being generous, giving to people, being helpful. Um, because in those moments when we're in a contracted state of ego consciousness, we've forgotten what we have and what we are. If we could recognize the limitless love that we have, we wouldn't feel any unconscious sense of someone took from me or they harmed me, or they've changed something in my relationship to myself. That's what we're holding on to, is like a negative imprint in that relational experience that we are using as a reason to feel down on ourselves. So ultimately, if we work on the energy internally through forgiveness is a really huge part of it. Forgiving people in the Course in Miracles, they talk about true forgiveness, which is forgiving people for what they didn't really do, knowing that this is all, this isn't the truth. The truth is oneness. The truth is love. And we're in this dream of separation. So we're dreaming these dreams of harm and attack and violence, but we actually reside in God, and nothing can harm or separate or break what is whole. So no one can hurt us really. The individual, that's where we can experience, the dream of pain and suffering and being hurt. So when we go beyond this dream world of separation, no one hurt us, no one harmed us, no one stole us, no one took us away from God, So the more we can rest into that, it's easier then to forgive people, because we're not blaming them for our experience of separation. Because ultimately, what the ego does is it goes through our life and it accumulates stories of other egos and blames them for our pain and our unhappiness. But it's got nothing to do with them, because there are millions of people that have had extremely hard experiences in this world and have chosen happiness and have chosen to liberate themselves into peace. And they could have very good reasons to be resentful and angry and not forgiving and holding on to stories and saying I'm doomed to be unhappy and in suffering, but they choose not to. So it's all a choice of whether you want to excavate spiritual light and wisdom, which is the whole point of being here, from your experiences, or stay stuck in a worldly perception of me versus you and hold on to negativity and resentment. And it's a nuanced process, because there are still times where we have to see where people are and hold boundaries and things. So we want to separate our internal consciousness that we're holding and the physical world, way that we are called to relate with humans. Because sometimes it might be in alignment for us to not interact with someone, but it's never in alignment for us to hold resentment or judgment or unforgiveness. That harms us, harms them, helps no one. So forgiveness is going to be great. Forgiveness for yourself, forgiveness for them, and ultimately the first part really is knowing that doesn't serve you. Because if you think it serves you, if you think somehow it's protecting you to hold on to resentment, negativity, judgment, or whatever it is, you think it somehow is good for you, then you're going to justify it. But it's never good for you. So the ego might want to position itself as right or above, or be in this victim villain mindset. The victimhood consciousness will really make it hard for us to move into forgiveness, because we want to blame the other person. So letting go of the idea that anyone did anything to you and be like, okay, this is all for my learning. This was all just part of my curriculum. It doesn't really matter who's playing what part. I could swap places with them just as easily and be on the other side of the lesson. It's just the same lesson learned in different ways. So it doesn't matter which character I'm playing, the work remains the same. The work is opening into forgiveness, opening into self-realization, opening into the heart, opening into relationship with God. And ultimately, as we break through these karmic lessons and liberate our consciousness out of belief in separation, then we graduate into higher lessons, and then we start to have more loving lessons and more loving people and higher consciousness people around us to learn with. But still, it doesn't mean that those people are better. Like, everyone was the perfect lesson for us. Everyone was the perfect teacher. And so we want to hold gratitude. It really helps to hold gratitude. If you can, instead of being like, I'm a victim and this happened to me, it's like, oh yeah, I had this major initiation and it taught me so much. And I'm so grateful for it. Speak gratitude into your hardest experiences, because they are for sure often the most fruitful ones for your spiritual path and growth.
It's true. That's absolutely true, because you would have never have, like, gotten to the other side of things and seen that perspective and had those lessons had you not endured the pain that you went through feeling those feelings. And it helps you be in more love because you're like, "I'm experiencing, this opposite feeling," so it does make you more grateful on the other side.
Exactly. Sometimes it's hard in the moment to feel grateful. I know, trust me. So don't force it when you don't feel it. Instead, just be like, I know this is helping me to learn. So I've just got to take my lessons as they come and be humble. I've just got to be a humble student of the now. Is what I say. Just be a humble student of the now. I'm here. I'm learning. I'm in this moment, and I'm not escaping it. I'm not running from it. I'm not avoiding it. I'm here and I'm learning. And when your heart is closed, that means you're still learning. When you feel open and loving, you should celebrate, because then you're in your true nature. And in other moments, okay, let me learn, let me study, let me do the work I need to do. And just one more piece around practices. So for me, prayer is one of the things that I really recommend with my students. It's really transformed my life since I started to really pray regularly. Probably about 5 to 6 years ago, I started to really cultivate a prayer practice. And that has been absolutely transformative. And other than that, I'd say just follow your guidance. Like, you will always be shown what you need to do. And we all have specific things that resonate with us more. I mean, everyone loves nature is good for all of us. But for example, when you're a child, there would have been certain things that you were attracted to that you found very nourishing, that were like natural meditations for you. Like for me, making art. It's a natural meditation. If I draw and things, I'm just going to be processing naturally. I don't even need to try to do my spiritual work. It's just happening in those moments. Time in silence is, I highly, highly recommend time in silence as a way to clean your mirror, because it just shows you. You can see where you are more in silence. But yeah, for relational learnings, forgiveness, praying to truly love people, like asking for help to love, you need to admit that I don't know how to truly love this person. I'm not managing to truly love them. So help me to truly love them. And good prayer is, help me to love this person as you love them, God. Or I want to love like you, God. Asking for that correction, because we have an idea of what love is, and it's usually some parts of it are right, but there's a lot of refinement needed.
Yeah.
But it's in us. So it is a revelation. But yeah, ultimately, if your intention is pure, if you want to truly love, if you want to forgive, if you want to make progress, if you're sincere in your work, then you will be guided to all the things you need in the perfect time. And the work will happen, and it will happen without you even realizing sometimes. And sometimes it will happen in the hardest ways. And then afterwards, always you'll have a huge breakthrough. So if it's hard, then I'm always saying to my students, like, well, that's great news. Great light is on the way. Because that's the reality of it. I mean, my journey has confirmed that again and again. The hardest moments always lead to the biggest breakthroughs. And doesn't mean that they feel better. Like I say, it's not comfortable. It never gets comfortable in those moments. But it doesn't last forever. It always shifts. And we always have power to facilitate the shift and to catalyze the shift. And then when it does shift, then we become so much stronger and more powerful as a result of the lesson. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this has been so healing. I just want to give you a huge hug.
Oh, bless you.
So everybody listening is going to find so much healing in this. This is a massive, like, remembrance conversation. Like, oh yeah, you just forget sometimes that this is the whole point. And so thank you for literally sharing your heart and sharing your love.
Oh, so sweet. Bless you. It's my honor to share. Truly. I haven't done a podcast in a little while. It feels so nice. I feel like I have so much wisdom that I've accumulated. And I have like a group of students that I've been working with long term for the past like 4 or 5 years. Most of them, some of them a bit longer. So we're kind of in our little portal doing this like incredible miraculous awakening work. But I've been hibernating more there. So when I get a chance to come out and share more, it's so nice because I'm like, I always think, wow, imagine if we had so many more people receiving what because it's miraculous the work we're doing. Like, wow, it's amazing. I mean, the spirit does things, miraculous things in these places, and we are blown away every single time. We're always like, how can it get brighter and more powerful? And yet somehow it always does.
So incredible. And it's like people need to hear this, and even just listening, it's planting the seed, and it's having the experience, and you can feel the love. Even just that is doing God's work in so many
Yes.
ways.
Yes, exactly. It's such a
How can people work with you? And is there anything else that you'd like to close out on that you'd like to share?
So I'll do the work with me first. So I have an Oracle training that I'm going to be opening up this year. It's going to be an in-depth 3-month training for really cultivating next level crystalline oracular gifts, which is really my area of mastery. It's the thing that I have done the best at so far in this life. And I'm really just so honored to be able to activate others into a whole other dimension of their channeling abilities. So that you can bring through transmissions that just blow you away every single time, where the frequency is next level, it's miracle work, really. And so that you can really activate what is dormant within you, because we all have this power. So I'm really excited about that. I also have Lighthouse, which is my school, and it's going to be more of a membership. I'm going to reframe it, but that has like all these different portals in on all these different topics, full of codes. Like we've got teachings on inner union, teachings on inner alchemy, teachings on liberating, your expression, teachings on abundance and eternal wealth, teachings on the power of awakening. Like we have all these different portals in there. There's going to be 14 by the end of this year.
Oh
And I'm
my
going to open
goodness.
that up. Yeah, so you can come and dive in, and then you can just get activated on a whole range of topics. And there's prayers, there's like, healing activations in many of these. And I mean, every single transmission is just overflowing with light. So those are the two main ways to work with me. I do some one-to-one work, but I mostly do groups, and occasionally I do retreats. So the best thing to do is follow me on Instagram. You can get on my mailing list, and I'll be sharing more. I'm in a deep phase of cultivation of a next level of light, and sharing more with more people, and spreading all of this goodness that I feel so blessed to have been working so intimately with my group of students over these years. And it's a real honor to walk so closely with people on their spiritual journey. And what we're doing is absolutely like incredible. And yeah, we'd love to welcome you in. So if you feel called to go deeper and to come into one of my long-term mentorship spaces, I have like masterminds where I'm working with my long-term students. That's more advanced work, but if you feel called and you feel you're ready, then you're ready. And it's mind blowing what we're doing in these spaces. So yeah, there's still some time this year if you want to jump in. I've got a group that I just began that is going to be running until the end of the year, called the Miracle Mind, which is, really about, I'm kind of being a spiritual doula, midwife for your greatest work,
Oh
for
my
your genius zone artistry, like next level innovative creation. It's a real quantum leap forth into your destiny and your power, and serving at a whole new level, and creating, your genius level signature legacy offering that you can serve through in very powerful, profound, miraculous ways for years to come. So I actually have one spot left in that. If you want to join, we've had a couple of
I'm like,
transmissions.
hi.
Oh, come, you're welcome, my love. You will be blown away. And so in that, if you join the Miracle Mind, you also get all of the Lighthouse transmissions that have been in the library, plus you get all the ones for this year, the portals that are happening this year. And yeah, we do like monthly mentorship, monthly like miraculous embodiment calls, like healing activations. There's going to be prayer calls like added in soon. And we'll be blasted with the light this year. So if you want to come, we have an amazing group of devoted souls and we're doing very deep work, but we are breaking into so much light all the time. It is absolutely miraculous. So yeah, those are the ways to work with me. And then my final message for you is, please, my dear, just trust your path. Trust your path. Trust your heart. If you're guided towards something, go in that direction, even if it scares you, even if your ego's freaking out, even if your, mind and logic is like, I can't, don't listen to that. Just trust your heart. Where there's a will, there's a way, okay? If you're guided, then the way exists. So you need to find it. If you're called to work with me, I always say you have to trust the call, because what you receive working with me is what you've experienced today, but like times by 100, my loves. Because when we were in portal together, it's like we're blasted with miraculous, sublime, divine light, and it is absolutely next level. See the alarm being like, so yeah, come work with me if you feel called. I'll be honored. I pour my heart into everything I do, and I share my gifts abundantly. So if you want to come do oracle training, if you want to come be in the miracle mind and birth your next level genius zone creation with us, I would love to have you. Or if you want to come study more self-paced in Lighthouse, just with some additional coaching, I'm here. I'm here to serve anyone who's called to receive from me. And honestly, I know that the work I'm doing is very high frequency and we're really doing the work. So not everyone is ready or in resonance to face their ego like that. But, you guys who've listened to this, if you've listened and you're resonating, then you're one of the people that is maybe ready to come and do the level of work that we're doing. And I don't say that from a place of superiority. I say that from the humility of we're doing the real work. We're really facing ourselves, me included. We're really down there, like with the mother on the floor, in devotion with pure heart, so that we can really be the vessels we came to be and play our part in God's plan. That's what we're here for, to play our part in God's plan. So you have an important part, a vital part in God's plan. Nobody else can play it apart from you. And you are here to say yes and to become that version of you and to do all the work to break through every ego block that appears to stand in your way. And you will be supported. You are supported. You have received this transmission today for a divine reason, because you are a vibrational match to this frequency and not everyone is. So good for you. I always say if people come into alignment with me or my work, it's a great sign, because I know I cultivate a lot of light, like you have to be a match vibrationally. And I still got work to do, but you're doing great. Because sometimes I get people who are kind of early on the path and I'm like, you're doing amazing. I was not ready for this kind of light when I was early on my path. I'm like, it's a good sign for you, my dears. So stay on your path, be in the now, stay humble, ask for guidance and follow the guidance. You must follow. That's what I say. You have to follow. If there's someone you're meant to work with, you have to trust it. I have to do this too. And sometimes my ego's like, oh, I don't want to, but I have to trust it. And then always miracles unfold. So your path is miraculous. Everything's working out for you. Everything is happening for your growth and awakening. God is with you. You're being guided. Don't doubt your path for a second. Have absolute faith. And I have complete faith in your path and faith in you. And I'm grateful you exist. And I'm grateful for you, Antonia, for inviting me to be in this space with you. It's been so beautiful to join and connect in the heart and spread love and light and truth. And just God bless you all. And please message me, DM me on Instagram. I want to hear from you. Let me connect with you heart to heart, my loves. Let's let go of the walls of the social media and internet realms. Actually know each other and meet each other and speak and use our voices. So yeah, thank you. Mwah. God bless you all.
Oh, it's been such an honor. Thank you so much. Thank you, beautiful. Everyone will be able to connect with you in the show notes, and you are just wonderful.
Aww. Yay! So much love to everyone out there in the world. Much love, darlings.